can't dispose of them easily.
You can't be an American without
Not only that, you can't dissolve them with a chemical reaction because of the fact that it
Basically, I have to bury it.
even that contaminates the soil for so many years.
All right, hey, let's get started. Sorry, I've got a recording going and everybody's sitting at home waiting. All right, so let's get started with what we're doing today. I have split the group up. Group A is going to be in class. We have something going on. And Group B is going to be at home doing something. And then we're going to switch on Thursday. So you all sitting in class right now as I give instructions to the people at home, and some of y'all are doing the same thing today, make sure you're paying attention because you'll be doing this on Thursday. Okay? So for you all at home and in the class, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an introduction to our author, George Orwell, who wrote Animal Farm. Okay, we're going to do an introductory reading. It's a little over a page, and you're going to do some definitions and answer some questions. We're going to read it together. Then you all at home are going to start looking at the allegorical comparison between Animal Farm and the history of the Russian Revolution or Bolshevik Revolution. Obviously, we haven't read Animal Farm yet, so you all at home are going to be doing just the history side of it so far. You're going to look at Tsar Nicholas, Karl Marx, proletariat, bourgeoisie, Trotsky, Stalin, communism, which we talked about all of those over the last few days. And you are going to kind of start taking down some ideas. So whenever we start reading Animal Farm on Thursday, you are ready to kind of make a comparison with those characters, okay, or with those historical figures. And the last thing you're going to do is work on No Red Ink, okay, for y'all at home. But together right now, we're going to open up this first item. Those in the room and at home are going to do this. So open up George Orwell background assignment. So click on that link, and that will open up. Go ahead and open up the template, and that is going to look like this. So I'm going to give everybody a second to get there. All right, so you should see a picture of George Orwell there. Waiting for everybody to get there. Yeah, seems like a nice fellow. We'll find out if he's nice or not.
You don't know?
You don't know. And it might be hard to tell, but we'll see. Okay, so the instructions say, read the information below and answer the questions at the bottom of the page. So pretty easy. You read this and answer. There's 2 questions at the bottom, okay? So that's the first part. But as you read, so you need to do this as you read, and everyone's going to do this right now in the next few minutes. So you at home are doing this and you all in class. So as you read, define the terms that are underlined and in bold print. Research and type the definition of the word in the comment box that you are able to add by highlighting the word and clicking the blue plus sign on the right side of the page. So if you're looking at me on this document, so click over to the Google Meet if you don't know how to do this, but you highlight the word, and then whenever you highlight the word, a blue plus sign will pop up, and that's where you add the comment, and you can add the definition over there. I'll be looking for you to be typing the definition of these words, so I know that you're checking for understanding, okay? That you're checking to say, do I understand what this word means? Do I understand what this says? Okay? All right, so we're going to read through it together once. Just read with me, and then you all will go back, highlight the words, define them, and answer the questions. Okay? So let's read this together. So George Orwell, background information. George Orwell was a British journalist and author. So where is he from? Britain, okay? Who wrote 2 famous novels of the 20th century, Animal Farm in 1984. At your time at OIA, you will read both of these books, okay? You'll read Animal Farm this year, 1984 next year. Orwell was born Eric Arthur Blair on the 25th of June, 1903 in eastern India. The son of a British colonial civil servant, so you'll need to look up that word in a second, He was educated in England, and after he graduated from Eton, joined the Indian Imperial Police in Burma, then a British colony. He resigned in 1927 and decided to become a writer. In 1928, he moved to Paris, but a lack of success as a writer focused him into a series of menial jobs. He described his experience in his first book, Down and Out in Paris and London, published in 1933. He took the name George Orwell shortly before its publication, so he used a different name in his publication. This was followed by his first novel, Burmese Days, in 1934. So what we're taking from this is he began to become an educated writer, and he lived during the time that we're looking at. Okay, he lived during the time of the Bolshevik Revolution and into Stalin's reign over Soviet Union. Okay, so he was alive during this time, and he was writing. Okay, so let's keep going. An anarchist, which you'll need to look up that word, in the late 1920s. By the 1930s, he began to consider himself a socialist. In 1936, he was commissioned to write an account of poverty among unemployed miners in northern England, which resulted in the road to Wigan Pier, 1937. Late in 1936, Orwell traveled to Spain to fight for the Republicans against Franco's nationalists. He was forced to flee for fear of his life from Soviet-backed communists who were suppressing revolutionary socialist dissenters. The experience turned him into a lifelong anti-Stalinist. Anti-Stalinist. Between 1941 and 1943, Orwell worked on propaganda for the BBC. In 1943, he became literary editor of the Tribune, a weekly left-wing magazine. By now, he was a prolific journalist, writing articles, reviewing books, and in 1945, Orwell's Animal Farm was published, a political fable set in a farmyard based on Stalin's betrayal of the Russian Revolution. It made Orwell's name and ensured he was financially comfortable for the first time in his life. 1984 was published 4 years later. Set in an imaginary totalitarian future, the book made a deep impression with its title and many phrases such as "Big Brother is watching you," entering popular use. Orwell died of tuberculosis on the 21st of January 1950. All right, so there's two questions here. You're going to go back and make sure you're going to reread, and you're going to define those words. But here are the two questions. How may George Orwell's stance on totalitarian political regimes have affected his writings? So did he like totalitarian regimes? No, he was against them. He fought against them. You make note of this up here. He fought in Spain against Franco's nationalists, and Franco was a totalitarian. And also, Stalin was a totalitarian. So how do you think, and I'm looking for a sentence or two, how do you think that impacted his writings? Okay, was he positive again about totalitarians? Was he negative? Do you think he criticized them? What do you think? All right. Number two, having worked for propaganda for the BBC, how may this have affected his view on the way the human mind can be manipulated? We talked about propaganda in your Chem chart. Propaganda is the use of information to change or adapt the way people think. So was he familiar with propaganda? How can this maybe have given him insight into how the mind works? Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you all some time to work on this. I'm actually going to go ahead. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, so if you come back over I gave you all about 10 minutes. If you come back over to the Google meet, you can look at, and I had a lot of people asking me questions about these questions at the bottom. So I'm giving you an example of an answer. So if you're struggling, you can take a moment and kind of look at what I wrote. And obviously you can't copy and paste, but you can kind of get an idea. So the first one said, how may George Orwell's stance on totalitarian political regimes have affected his writing? So we know from the reading that Orwell fought against totalitarian regimes in his life, and he knew how they could manipulate and limit the freedoms of the people. So Orwell's writing would be anti-totalitarian because he witnessed the pain inflicted by those governments. Okay? So Orwell is obviously going to be anti-Stalinist, anti-totalitarian, and be against these kind of powerful regimes, okay, these really strong governments. So what political philosopher, going a little bit farther with this, would Orwell be aligned with? Orwell's, what philosopher said, I'd rather have no government than a really, really strong totalitarian government? It wasn't Hobbes. Locke. Locke said that. Locke said, I'd rather no government over a tyrannical totalitarian government. Okay? All right, so number 2, having worked for propaganda for the BBC, how may this have affected his view on the way the human mind can be manipulated? So we saw the years that he worked in propaganda, 41 to 43. What was going on during those years? What big war? World War II. Okay? So Orwell used propaganda during World War II to aid in his country's fight. Orwell was aware of how propaganda can convince, manipulate, and push people to believe whatever the government wants them to believe. Orwell knew the power of propaganda and how it could be used for evil, or in his mind, totalitarian regimes. Okay? So take a moment, make sure you have this and understand it. Are there any questions about those answers? I can go back up to the other one. All right, so that should have been enough time for everyone to make sure they have those answered. If you are still working on highlighting and defining the words, finish that. But I need you to right now go over to Echo and make sure you hit the submit my button, or submit my work button. Not submit my button, submit my work button. Because I already had one student in class forget to hit that button. So
let me tell you something here. I've done it before, and I didn't expect y'all to Thank you.
So that is real world for sure. So make sure you hit that submit button. All right. Before I let you all go at home, I need to go over what you're going to be doing for the rest of the day. You all in here, you're going to be doing it on Thursday, so you should follow along and make sure you're aware of what you're going to be doing. So this is going to be begin working on the Animal Farm Allegory chart assignment. So you can go ahead and open that up. So open that up, view the template. So go ahead and open up the Animal Farm Allegory chart assignment. And we've been talking, we looked in our chem chart, we talked about it today, that Animal Farm is an allegory, okay? And an allegory is a story that has characters that are symbolic of historical characters. So our characters in Animal Farm are going to align with characters in history, okay? And I've already given you who they align with. So if you look at this, it says Animal Farm Allegory chart assignment, and everybody should have this up. And it says, identify the character from the novel, connect to a character from the communist Russia, and explain reasoning. And some of these are characters, some of them are historical ideas, but you'll see as we go. Now, we haven't read the book yet, so you don't know these characters yet. That's okay. You're going to skip the left side. What I want you to do is on the right side, I want you to go through the characters that we've covered, which that's Tsar Nicholas, Karl Marx, the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, Trotsky, Stalin, and communism. Okay? And I have that on the agenda. If you look at the agenda, it gives you the ones that I want you to make sure to cover today. So Nicholas, Marx, proletariat, bourgeoisie, Trotsky, Stalin, communism. And I want you to go through, and if you're looking at the agenda, use your notes from the Russia Before Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution and Civil War, and your Kim chart to go in and provide me some information about these historical figures, okay? So let's do Tsar Nicholas together, okay? So everybody should be doing this. So what are some historical things you remember about Tsar Nicholas? How did Tsar Nicholas do in World War I? Was he a good leader, a bad leader? What was he? Wyatt says he was a bad leader in World War I. So yeah, we're going to put that bad leader in World War I. And he allowed for millions of Russians to die. Specifically on the battlefield, if we're going to be more specific. For millions of Russians to die on the battlefield. Yes, thank you. There we go. Is that better? Bad leader in World War I allowed for millions of Russians to die on the battlefield. And this is directly from your notes. Okay? This is the second thing on the agenda at the top. Okay? Allowed for millions of Russians to die on the battlefield. Did he stay in power for his whole life? No. What did he do? He didn't die. Well, he ended up dying. But before he left power, what was the word that we use that it means give up his throne? Abdicate. Thank you very much, sir. So he abdicated his throne. And if you want to put in parentheses to remember, he gave up his throne. Okay, he stepped down and gave up his throne.
You spelled throne wrong, the person.
Oh, yep. He didn't throw his throne. He throne. Thank you. Gave up his throne. And then later he died. Did he die of natural causes? How did he die?
Oh, was he murdered?
Yes, he was murdered. He was killed by the revolutionaries. When he was in power, sorry, I'll slow down. And everybody at home should be following along with us, writing this down. One more bullet here. How did he treat his people? Was he a good person to his people, or was he a bad person? Wyatt Stigton said no. Why do you think he was a bad leader? What was he doing? He was a bad leader who starved his people. And was corrupt. So we're just putting a few bullets here. And was corrupt. We're just putting a few bullets here to kind of like summarize who this character or idea was. And you're going to do that just did it for Tsar Nicholas. Now you're going to go and do 3 or 4 bullets for Karl Marx, the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, Trotsky, and Stalin. So you all at home are going to finish this. You all in here are going to do this on Thursday because we're going to go a different path while you're in here. And then whenever you're done with this at home, you all are going to work on No Red Ink connecting clauses, okay? So you should spend about 20 to 30 minutes on finishing these historical descriptions, and then about 20 minutes on connecting clauses practice through No Red Ink. Okay, if you have questions about that, make sure to send me an email. I'll do a workshop on that tomorrow or on Thursday. All right, if you